Hello and welcome to Conversations With. I'm your host, Leigh Toney, Executive Director of the Carrie Meek Entrepreneurial Education Center at Miami-Dade College. And we're excited to have a different type of guest on the show today. We have Mr. Troy Simmons. He's an internationally renowned artist based here in South Florida. And welcome to the show, Troy.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Good, glad to have you. So I say this is rather different. You're the first artist we've had on the show, Conversations With. But I think in Miami, with all of the attention and the focus on this really vibrant art scene, I think it makes a lot of sense to have this conversation. So it's probably long overdue. So why don't you start by telling us about yourself? You're from Houston, from what I learned, but you've been in this area for about 8.5 years.
8.5 years in Miami.
So what's it like being an artist in Miami right now?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, the city is, like you said, it's a vibrant city for artists, and it's becoming an internationally known city. So being an artist here, I mean, you're exposed to the world per se. So it's one of the best places to be as an artist right now.
Great, great. What do you think about? We recently opened in the last couple of years. We have the PAM, the Perez Art Museum. Wynwood has just really transformed into kind of, I would say, the epicenter of the art world here in Miami. What's it like, the support base, the exposure for an artist, and particularly an artist of color?
Well, I'm happy you mentioned that. When I first, just to back up, when I first moved to Miami, pursuing the art world was a little different, and when you bring up an artist of color, it was a little bit of a kind of a silent, isolated world, especially being from an American black person here. Black African American here in Miami was totally, odd for me, and I think it was odd for the gallerist and the other, I guess, the art world here, because there really wasn't a real market or no one really knew much about, like, what do you do? Like, where are you from? Are you from the Caribbean? Are you from Cuba? Like, you have a Spanish background? Like, give me something. I love your work, but relate it back to something familiar. So therefore, to say as an African American artist here, it was different 8 years ago. But now the work speaks more so. Then it was about where you're from and how you connect to Miami.
Sure.
But now, because the city is so engulfed with people from everywhere, I mean, it's more like, okay, the work is speaking for itself. Sure. And so it's hopefully that hit the point.
It did. How would you describe your work?
Well, I describe it as it's just a piece of myself. It's an experiment. It's my life, basically. It's just a storytelling of things I've experienced. Different pieces and parts of different careers I've had, different experiences traveling. So it's just a part of me. My work is just, it evolves from who I am and what I've experienced and what I've gone through in life.
Who are some of your inspirations?
Ooh, well, honestly, this is the architects, a lot of different architects, especially from the Brutalist movement. Brutalism is a type of architecture that was done in the 50s and 60s. Really in Europe, but here in the United States also. But it was, they used concrete more than, as opposed to like other building materials. They never covered that concrete with anything like stucco or brick.
You just described all our Miami-Dade College campuses.
Well, basically, there you go.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It was built from that era also, the 50s forward, so therefore, the Brutalist movement was really something that really inspired me, and some architects like Rainer DC, and again, traveling through Europe and seeing some of the architecture there was just really inspirational.
So when did you know you were an artist?
I'm still learning. No. I guess I always felt like I had a talent to create. As a kid, I was always creating something. I would bring little sticks to my house in Houston. My mom would be like, "What do you do with those sticks?" And I would make little objects out of the sticks, and that was just kind of a play and just creative. And my mom would always open that door, like, okay, what are you doing? What are you gonna do with it? And I would make this little thing out of it, and she would be excited about it. Maybe 4 or 5 years old at that time, but she was still excited about it. So my mom put that positive, like, artsy thing in me. So as far as knowing that I was an artist, I mean, it really didn't dawn on me as an artist until probably maybe about 15 years ago,
Okay.
20 years ago.
Okay. Did
Yeah.
you study art in college?
No, I did not study art in college. Art was not to say I didn't know it as a way to make a living, so therefore it wasn't an option for going to school to be an artist for me in Texas with a middle class family in Houston, Texas. You know, in the urban environment that I was in, I never met an artist before, so I didn't know that that was even an option to be an artist.
And that's a fairly common experience, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know anyone else as an artist besides, from my past. I don't know any of my friends growing up, family members. Only artists I know are the ones that I've met since I've been here in Miami and really pursuing the art field.
So you studied something else in college,
Yeah.
and then later on, I understand you went to study architecture, so I hear you
Yeah.
referencing the Brutalist movement
Yeah,
and
yes.
things of that nature. How do you blend those two things together?
Well, the work is a blending of really, like I said, it's my life, but my careers that I've chosen. I went to school first for environmental science. I worked as a lab technician for a water treatment company, doing the different tests on the water pollution and just working with water, the pH balances and everything. I worked for the city basically with a lab that did purification of water to put it back into the system for the environment and for us to have it as drinking water. It got really boring. The numbers were pretty much the same, and it was one of those things where it was like if there wasn't like some major catastrophe, then there wouldn't be much excitement in my life, and I felt like, man, I can't do this for another 50 years,
That makes
40
me think,
years. So
you're in South Florida. We have the Everglades.
Yes,
How,
yes.
if at all, does that play into your
that
artistry?
would play. Well, it doesn't play into my life now because I abandoned the environmental science field back. I don't want to call my age, but I abandoned
tell
it
us, you're
about
amongst
20,
friends.
about 15 years ago, I would say. Not 15, maybe 10 years ago. I abandoned that and I went into architecture. So, and architecture was my way of being an artist and exploring my, my life, or me being that transition of being an artist and still having a career that was acceptable in society on a whole. That I was familiar with. Okay. So basically, the architectural field pushed me into evolving architecture, environmental, and then my artwork basically played a game of architecture and environmental science, kind of playing and mixing itself together with each other, along with experiences.
Interesting. We're going to talk about it. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, I'd like for you to paint a picture for our audience of what is the day-to-day life of an artist look like. So we'll talk a little bit about that, drill down, talk about your work in your studio. So stay with us. We're here with Troy Simmons. Hope you'll stay with us for the second component of our show.
Be creative. Be a hero. Be the solution. Be connected. Be innovative. Be global. Be successful. Be you. Be MDC. Be Miami-Dade College.
Welcome back to Conversations With. I'm your host, Leigh Toney, and my guest today is Troy Simmons. So before we took a break, I mentioned that I'd ask you to describe to us the day-to-day life of an artist. I know you're with a firm that represents you, and just want to pull back the curtain a little bit about the process of creation and kind of the managing the financial side of that. What exactly does that look like?
Okay, well, day to day, it's a lot of you have to really control everything. Basically, I mean, you're a entrepreneur. You're a business person.
Absolutely.
First of all, I mean that's to make a living with it. You have to be a business person. You have to you have to create your product. You have to advertise your product. You have to sell your product. So it's like you have to do everything from production, everything has to be done. So it's one thing, it's only one small factor to be able to like create the art, but you have to also sell it.
Right.
So day to day, I'm up, go straight to the studio and draw up a few designs or a few ideas that I may have had a thought or a dream about per se, and then get on whatever project that I'm working on for that day, which may be a piece that I've already started working on. And sometimes I go in all night long. Sometimes I go until like in the afternoon, have dinner with my wife, and then go back to the studio and stay in the studio until maybe 1, 2, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning.
So you're represented by Jen Cusin.
Yes, Jen Cousin,
Jen
contemporary.
Cousin, right.
Yes, from Basel, Switzerland.
Good.
She represents the work. And
Is it their job to market your work to potential buyers, investors, collaborators?
Yeah, that's her job. That is her job. She represents me, but we're also, the business is set up where most galleries, which she's my gallerist, and she takes a percentage of the work that I make. So it's still my responsibility to promote myself.
Sure.
She does her part. She's in Europe, but she opens doors to my work in Europe, and I let her do her part, and I continue to do my part. And I'm sorry.
How do you introduce yourself to the local market, the local South Florida markets? What are some of the avenues?
Yeah, well, I'm in a pretty high-profile area. That gets a lot of traffic. I'm located right in Wynwood.
And then you're in the Bakehouse.
At Bakehouse Art Complex. So, I have a lot of walk-in traffic. And actually, my gallerist, she was here in town for Art Miami Week, Art Basel Week in Miami. And she stopped by my studio, and we basically went from there. She purchased pieces, and we started this roller coaster that I've been on. So she met there in Bakehouse. So what I do is I use my studio space as my advertisement. When people come through my studio, we basically connect. People like the work. Gallerists come in, they want to represent, and we just basically go from there. So my main source of marketing has been through my studio right now.
And have you found that there's a particular type of art collector that is more appreciative or interested in your work? Is there a profile, or is it just folks who you see it, you like it, you buy it, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's the work that I do. It's something that I've really created myself, and I didn't really follow any guidelines. Again, I didn't go to school for art, so there was no rules. I didn't learn them, so I didn't know how to break them. So therefore, it was more the work that I create is just something that I've thought up, and it kind of stretches outside the boundaries of sculpture and painting. So it kind of mixes together with both. And so that being said, a lot of people, there's no one profile of a person that likes my work. They're learning and they're like, what is it? So it's kind of the shock value at first of like, wow, the way the materials are going together, it creates, some people love it and some people question it. So therefore, I can't really put my hand or finger on what the exact profile of a person that may purchase my work would be.
Okay, so when did you figure out that you wanted to pursue this full time? You mentioned your work in doing environmental work in the water company, but when did you know that you had something and you needed to devote yourself to this full time?
Yeah, well, the architectural career was in the middle of this, okay? I worked as an architectural designer for a residential design build firm in Oklahoma City. And during that time, I felt like I had reached the spot where I could live the rest of my life and that would be my career. But when the economy fell in 2008, I really had to reach back into what was making me happy because the economy fell. There was no building going on anywhere. So therefore, I had to really use my art as therapy, and what I was creating became a job. It became a career. So that's when I was really pushed into being a full-time artist because there was nothing else at that particular time besides me going back to art as a therapy.
I've heard people say this, that sometimes at the moment where you may feel the most vulnerable or things may look the most grim, therein lies an opportunity.
Exactly.
And that is kind of the hallmark of an entrepreneur, to be able to recognize when an opportunity has presented itself, when it looks like things may be at their bleakest point.
And that's really what happened, and it pushed my work, it changed my work also. My work changed into a different style of work, I reached into myself more so, and I really brought out a slight depression that was going on with me, and it really like pushed my work into another level of a different style of work, and it helped me so much. It helped. Leave it that simple.
So you grew up in Houston, in the urban community.
Yes.
How do you think about exposing your work to other young people like yourself who kind of grew up with this gift but didn't really know what to make of it? Or you mentioned recently again, you hadn't really met an artist when you were a young person. Yeah. And I think being introduced to this kind of thing when you're young is really important.
Yeah, it's very important. It's just something that if you're not exposed to something, then you won't know about it. If you're not exposed to it, you will never even have an idea to be able to pursue or think about it. So it's very important. I really, it's very important. I just leave it that simple.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to take another break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about more about your work and more about Miami in particular and growing that and figuring out, and a lot of what we talk about on Conversations With have to do with capital and investors, and maybe that comes into your work, maybe it doesn't, but we'll figure that out in our next conversation. So we're going to take another break. Stay with us, and we'll come back and talk more with Troy Simmons.
Be creative. Be a hero. Be the solution. Be connected. Be innovative. Be global. Be successful. Be you. Be MDC. Be Miami-Dade College.
Conversations With. I'm Leigh Toney, your host, and my guest today is Troy Simmons. We've been learning a lot and talking a lot about the process of art and being an artist in South Florida and Miami as a backdrop for artists in particular. And I want you to share a little bit more with us about how your work is created, okay, and how many different disciplines or skills or talents you have to employ to create. And how many pieces are you working on at any given time? Just trying to really take people deep dive into your world.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I usually work on at least 2 to 3 pieces at one time. The reason being is that I use a lot of different types of material. It's a little quote that I like to say. Home Depot is my art supply store, and a hammer and a chisel, those are my paintbrushes. So basically my work, I use my hands a lot, so it's more of I build, I create, I deconstruct, and then I construct again. So the works are really a play in just me learning different things and how to work and do different things. I sew, I mix concrete, I build frame systems, I work with basically, it's like I'm building a house in a way, and then I go in and I'll deconstruct it, and then I'll rebuild it again. And that's just part of the way the works are put together. I mean, it's a raw, but yet and still controlled, polished works that I try to do. So I try to bring in elements of like aged, old, and then brand new things.
So if we visited your studio, there'd be works that are on display and finished pieces already, and then behind the curtain there'd likely be multiple pieces that are in various stages of completion.
Yeah, I try to like really limit myself because it takes such a long time to create one piece. So I'm always told, you have to complete what you start, because if not, I will have pieces sitting around. I'll get a new idea and I'll want to jump into that next idea. So I'm controlling myself a little bit better now, with the work, as opposed to, I would say, a few years ago when I was just doing a lot of different things, getting started on different projects. I have a different idea, I do a different type of piece, I'll jump into sculpture, I'll do a piece that's a wall hanging piece, or I'll do a floor piece. But now it's a little bit more controlled because I'm working with you know, a few galleries that are you know, putting a little bit of demand on me now. You know, it's so the demand they're asking for the work, so therefore I have to like control myself a little bit more and put it into more of a, I don't want to say a corporate type of setting, but I have to really limit and really organize what I'm doing. I run it almost like an architectural firm in a way. So I have to really like keep everything, you know, everything controlled and in order.
Tell me about Art Basel. It really changed the art environment here in South Florida when Art Basel came to town. How much do you put into preparing for that type of an experience, or either here or in other places of the part of the country?
Yeah, well, whenever there's a really large show, Art Basel being one, and then the shows that happen in New York, and then Art Basel that happens in Switzerland.
Right.
So therefore, those are 3 shows, and they're all spread out besides the 2 shows, which Art Basel in Switzerland happens close to the same time as Art New York and the big shows in New York. So my year is completely booked with creating for those shows.
Gotcha.
And besides the small little shows or other shows that may happen in between, or other opportunities from galleries that might pop up. So therefore, I'm really, you know, in studio working and preparing for Art Basel each year. So I'm preparing for either a Basel Miami, or preparing for a Basel Switzerland, or preparing for the shows in New York. And basically now I'm just really, like, every day is a work in progress.
What do you find, how does your work change from year to year? You have some upcoming exhibitions as well.
Yes.
And some of them you've done the same exhibitions every year, like Art Basel. How does your work change, grow, transform on a yearly basis?
Yeah, well, with my work, I really like, I have a sketchbook, and I draw and sketch out like different ideas that I may have a dream about, or an idea that just pops in my head while I'm just somewhere or maybe traveling, and then I go back to the sketchbook and I figure out what I want to create. You know, it may take me 2 to 3 months to create one piece or a series of pieces, and I have to really pick and choose which ones that I want to do next. So therefore, to answer the question, I go back in my sketchbook and I'll choose something that I've drawn and an idea that I've had, and then I'll create for that specific year or create for that specific show.
Okay. It sounds a lot like the music industry, you know, songs that are written, songs that are never recorded,
Yeah,
a
there's a lot
catalog.
of it,
So it's like
basically,
a catalog of possible art pieces that you have
Exactly,
at
yeah.
your disposal. Okay,
Yeah,
good. So for the parents out there, your mom, you started at the top of the show, co-signed, inspired you, supported what you were doing. And we want to provide information to our students. A lot of them watch the show, and their families who are artists and want to pursue that passion. What would you advise for them?
For the potential artist, I would say to truly, you know, just pursue the art. You know, put everything they have into it, and keep their mind open to every opportunity that comes up in that field, and also have a backup. You have to have multiples. I mean, art is one thing. In any field, you have to have multiples.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I mean, now the way it is today, I mean, you have to have more than one thing that you're doing. Whether you're selling a T-shirt on the side or something, you just have to have something else. If you have another craft or something, you have to have something else going on. But if you have your true passion in art, I mean, really pursue it. You know, put everything you have into it and do everything you can to bring it alive. But, you know, in order to eat, you still have to have something else to fall back on. So I would say you have to really just have something else to go along with it, especially with art, because it's so subjective. I mean, it's, you know, you can be on top one year, and you can be on the bottom the next year. You have to have something to spread it out. It's like with any job. It's real estate. It's like it's with anything. You know,
Sure.
you have to, and it depends a lot on what's going on in the economy. It depends on your livelihood's going to depend on what happens with the stock market. You know, it's going to depend on who's the president. It's going to depend on, you know, it depends on so much, especially in the art world. So you really have to have something to get you through those low periods of time in order to still be able to
pursue your
create and
passion.
pursue your passion
Absolutely.
that you want to do. So.
And how would you advise the new person who's just cultivating an interest in art in a community like Miami, what would you advise them to do? Just walk into a gallery, or how could one go about developing more of an appreciation and understanding of art from your point of view?
Well, I really think, a person should really close the doors on everything they were taught in art, because if not, you become a copycat of something, or you have a tendency to think about what you already saw, or think about what another artist did. So I would close the doors, or close those books, and just really think about your life and your story, and cultivate a story. You have to have a story with it. Once you get your originality, because that's really what it's about. You have to be original, and you have to really have a story that's gonna really be in your heart. It has to be something that's really close to you, and let your work flow through that, and write that story down, work on that story, create the work that's from you, and without too much of an influence from too many other people or things, but just keep it original and cultivate your story.
I couldn't think of a better ending. Troy, thank you so much for being with us today on Conversations With. I think that last piece about cultivating your story means you got to know your story, know thyself, and own your story, and let that inspire everything else that you do. Powerful, potent message. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Enjoyed having you. Enjoyed talking with you.
You also.
I look forward to catching some of your shows as well.
Great.
Good. Thank you, too, for being with us on Conversations With today. I hope you enjoyed our talk with Troy Simmons, and please be on the lookout for his work. And I hope you'll stay tuned and be with us on our next episode of Conversations with the CEO. Thank you for joining us.